Welcome back. Northeast Wisconsin Technical College is a finalist for a major award in higher education. NWTC, one of 10 finalists for the Aspen Prize for Community College Excellence. This award is handed out every 2 years. It means $1 million for the winner. Over 1,000 community colleges were analyzed by the Aspen Institute. 150 were invited to apply. After 118 applied, that number was whittled down to these 10 finalists. Their criteria is data-driven, with NWTC exceeding national averages in several categories. Up next, campus visits in the fall of the finalists. Then a winner will be announced in April. Earlier today, we visited with the president of the college to learn more. Welcome you all to NWTC, the office of Dr. Kristen Rainey, in charge out here. So when you heard about the finalist thing, what was the first thing that went through your mind? What does this mean to you?
The first thing that went to my mind, I was thrilled because it's an honor for the college and it recognizes work that the faculty, the staff, my predecessor, Dr. Raffin, have been working on for years. And so that recognition is significant in that way.
It's interesting that one of the other 10 finalists is also in Wisconsin, Southwest Technical College. Do you guys ever collaborate? You ever talk about this process? I know you were telling me off camera that they've actually been a finalist before.
They have been a finalist before. We didn't. We congratulated each other, and actually a third technical college, Western, was in the semifinalists. Okay. So there were actually 3 Wisconsin colleges in the top 20.
Well, Midwest schools, there's only been one that has won this award. It was in South Dakota, and you're the only 2 Midwest finalists. So there is some regional, I think, collaboration, right, to bring this award back to the Midwest.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're going to come visit, and that's part of determining who's going to win this thing. What do you know about that visit in the fall? How do you think they're going to conduct their investigation, for lack of a better phrase?
It's going to be an intense process. So they will come and they will have a review team with several people who are higher education experts who know what they're looking for. They will meet with a number of internal stakeholders. They're going to talk to faculty, they'll talk to staff, they'll talk to our board, and they'll talk with our leadership team. And they're going to ask questions about how do we make decisions, and they're going to ask how do we use data to really guide our decision making. And they'll ask for a lot of additional data as well.
Data, okay, that's the operative word here. This is a data-driven award. They look at all kinds of data and metrics here, but I think it's fair to say that all paints the picture that this is an affordable and available and attainable education system. How do you think that speaks to prospective students who are trying to weigh, do I want to go the 2-year system or do I want to go the 4-year system? How do you think all that plays in, that affordable and attainable?
I think it's a key message for prospective students. What we do at NWTC is we define our success by student success outcomes. So it's not just that we want them to come here, we want them to come here and thrive, and we design our programs and our educational pathways with the end in mind. So if they want to go and work in Northeast Wisconsin, our programs are going to lead them to good paying jobs right here in their home communities. And if they want to transfer, we work really hard with our transfer institutions to make sure that they can get to a 4-year pathway if that's what they want.
Right, we've seen some more and more of that collaboration. All this is taking place amidst the backdrop of what we hear quite a bit, and locally here too. The 4-year schools are in their financial models maybe aren't working, or they certainly need to be adjusted. Do you think that drives students here to 2-year schools? Because what you talked about with the jobs, it's there and it's tailored, and we talked about it on this program many times with folks from the school. You adapt to what is needed in your area. All that seems to work in your favor, especially considering the high cost of 4-year schools.
Yeah, I think we're looking at something we at the Technical College have always known, which is what we offer is an affordable and high quality education. It's hard to sometimes get that message out because people don't always know what a technical college does. We know that we are a bridge to like I said, good careers, but also those transfer pathways. And so we want students to see what's available to them, and it's not just any one thing. So we're trying to tell the story that NWTC does a lot of things for students, but always with their success in mind.
All right, that leads me to my last question, because how can this award, if you are fortunate enough to win it, you're going to find out, I think it's April of next year is when they announce the winner. How would that help you tell that story, right? How would that be a part of this larger, let's be honest, marketing picture?
Right. It confirms that by the most rigorous standards in this country, that NWTC is the college that transforms how we work, what we do, all with the student in mind. And we set very high measures for how we're going to track that and gauge whether we're working or not. And so our commitment to continuous improvement, always around the student, is at the forefront of everything we do.
Well, Dr. Rainey, congratulations on being a finalist. Good luck preparing for that fall visit, and hopefully we're back here in April visiting again.
Thanks for being here. It's great talking with you.